Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of Risen. If you are new here, my name is Kathy, and on this podcast, I discuss everything art related, such as design, acting, and filmmaking. I also share some of my best tips for self improvement and living your best life. So if you vibe with me, I would love for you to hit that follow button and turn on your notifications for Risen so that you don't miss any future episodes. Also, feel free to share my podcast too. I always appreciate new listeners, and I'm super grateful for current listeners like you. So, thank you so much for your support. In this episode, I'll be discussing some of my favorite films and recommendations. So, let's get to it. Oh man, where do I even begin with this episode? I feel like films are just such a beautiful form of art for storytelling, and it's so hard to just select a few films to recommend because I've seen so many throughout my life, and I feel like each film that I've seen and that I've thoroughly enjoyed deserves recognition. It deserves recognition because they're just so awesome in their own way. But what I will do today for this episode is recommend at least a few that if someone were to ask me, Kathy, what are some of your favorite films, I can give them this list and just walk them through it in as much detail as possible. So I really hope that the films that I discuss today are films that you end up watching and just checking out, and hopefully you'll let me know what you think about them too. But with that being said, my favorite film, as it being at the top of my list, I would say is Moonrise Kingdom by Wes Anderson. Now, Wes Anderson has to be one of my favorite directors of all time. He is just so unique in his own way. He is a character of himself. He's very different from a lot of film directors, from a lot of Hollywood directors, in the sense that he has this common theme throughout his films about reminiscing about childhood innocence. Like, there's just a lot of childhood innocence and childlike motifs throughout his film that I just really, really love, because he kind of emulates this really intricate persona and this viewpoint on life and on humans in general that says, even as we get older, we still have this childlike quality to us, or we have this childlike trait that we don't even know we have. So that's what I really, really love about Wes, is that he's just so unique in his own way. He uses a lot of vibrant colors, and in Moonrise Kingdom specifically, he really plays on the color palettes, such as, the analogous colors, which are red and green, the complementary colors on the color wheel, which are blue and orange. And his films are just super quirky and super comical. And you can tell that Wes is a director that's extremely meticulous to detail, and I feel like I can relate a lot to him. And I can connect with him in that way, because as a filmmaker, I feel like I've started to become as meticulous to detail now too. I just feel like when you're creating a film of your own and you're putting it together, you're kind of painting your own picture, and you're kind of squeezing the paint from the tubes and putting it on a little plate and creating that image from scratch. That's how I feel Wes Anderson's films work, and it starts off small and then it just builds and builds and builds. But with Moonrise Kingdom specifically, I just love how Wes took two very young actors and gave them grown up personalities. Um, just very mature personalities in the sense that in the very beginning, um, and the main character who is a young boy, he's a Boy Scout. He writes a letter of resignation to the scout manager or the scout leader, and he says in the letter, you know, this is my letter of resignation. I've had a great time, but it's time for me to move on or something like that. It was just so funny because, mind you, this actor or this kid is probably like maybe 10 years old, definitely not a teenager. Still in his young teens, is just like writing this like super um pretentious and high profile letter, because he wants to just escape and live his own life. And Moonrise Kingdom centers on two young actors who fall in love, and they think that they can just, you know, run away and kind of play everything by ear because they've left home, and they think that they can survive on just little rations of food, which I think is absolutely hilarious. Um, but I highly recommend that movie if you're looking for something just quirky and a little bit comical, kind of weird, kind of out there, and different from maybe some movies that you've seen before. And if you appreciate art, if you appreciate color theory, set design, costume design, and all that, this film definitely ticks all of the boxes. It checks everything out, for sure, I would say. So definitely check out Moonrise Kingdom by Wes Anderson. When I rented it for a day, I rented it through YouTube. It's definitely not on Netflix right now, although I really wish it was. Oh man, I love that movie so, so much. But you can rent it for a decent price on YouTube, and you can check it out that way. So the next film I want to talk about is the Equalizer series. And in that series, we got Denzel Washington, who plays the lead role. And he does a really great job at playing this man named Robert, who looks like your average civilian, but in reality, he's like this super cool superhero. You know, he's just the man who wants to solve people's problems, and he wants to make things right. And I absolutely love that about this film because, you know, you look at him, at least the people in the film kind of underestimate him. They don't know what he's capable of until he shows his true colors, and he's like, you know, don't mess with me type of thing, and do the right thing, be kind, and I won't get into your life. I won't butt in any way. But he's so, so good in that. It's a 3-part series, Equalizer. It's the first one, I think, from what I remember, it's in his hometown. The second one, I believe, is in another country, and then the third one is also shot in another country. But the the shots are really well done. The scenery, the location was really well thought out from a production standpoint. The storyline is spot on. I'm not gonna try to not really spoil any of the movies, obviously, because I want you guys to watch it and to let me know what you think. But Equalizer is such an action-packed film. There's never a dull moment, especially with Denzel Washington playing this, like, you know, badass guy trying to make things right. Um it's also very, you know, dramatic, especially with Equalizer 1. There are multiple stories that take place throughout that film, and by multiple stories I mean just like different instances where there's a family, you know, low income family that started their own business, and they get robbed and all that stuff. And then this this young this young girl who is an escort, you know, she's facing some problems too. And so Denzel as this Robert character, he tries to make things right. He tries to help them. He tries to advise these people, and ultimately takes care, quote unquote, of all the bad guys that get in the way of helping these good people in the town progress. So Equalizer, the series, is definitely on the top of my list. The next film I have as a recommendation, I would say, is Us. Us by Jordan Peele. Man, Jordan Peele is another one of my favorite directors of all time after Wes Anderson. Jordan is so unique in his own way. He creates this whole new world for us in this particular movie, and just everything that he's created to date, that he's written himself. I feel like his films are super metaphorical, especially with Us. I feel like Us, the metaphor at the end of the day, again, not trying to spoil the movie, but the metaphor to me was that we in our lives are sometimes the creations of our own problems, or we tend to be our own quote unquote monsters in a way. Although I don't think monsters is the right word. Monsters is a harsh word. None of you guys are monsters, but I think you know what I mean. That sometimes we don't realize that we may be doing more harms to ourselves than others, and we need to be mindful of that. We need to be careful with how we're treating ourselves, with how we're interacting with others and all that. I know Jordan had many other layers to the film Us, but to me that was one of the takeaways, that, the people we least expect to be harming us are the ones that are. Us is another great film because there's so many jump scares there. I never imagined there to be so many jump scares, and it is a little gory, although not as gory as like the Equalizer films and John Wick films. But Jordan Peele does a great job with character development in Us. And you can find this film on Netflix before it goes away. I don't know if it's leaving soon, but from what I know, Us is still available on Netflix, so definitely watch it. But Jordan takes us through this journey of this family who, are just supposed to be going on vacation, having the time of their lives, and then they meet another family who literally looks just like them. Like, they're the literal clones of the Jordan Peele family being portrayed. And throughout the film, you get these little motifs being thrown at you that you're like, what does this mean? What does that mean? Why is there a man holding a sign that says this? Da 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 da. One of the motifs that I noticed in that film was the bunny rabbit. There's like a bunny rabbit in this cell. Again, I don't want to spoil too much, but there's a bunny rabbit as a motif. There we have the scissors. We have people in red jumpsuits that just are popping out of nowhere and murdering people. The same people in the red jumpsuits are the clones of people living in the society that Jordan Peele created. But overall, that film is crazy. It's crazy in its own way, but in a good way, in a really really good way. So that's a really great film that I recommend. Another film that I recommend that also falls along the lines of a thriller similar to Us is Megan. Megan, I also thought was super well executed from start to finish. I felt that all the characters were really well developed, including Megan, the robot. I feel like, I don't know if I've ever really seen a robot-based film, but even the one that I kind of vaguely remember, I don't really think that the producer or the director or the writer really flushed out that character. Whereas in Megan, Megan is a robot, she's a doll, but she's given a personality, right? She's the star of the film, but it's not just like she's there to to just murder people. No, like, she actually has this this motive to be the caretaker of the little girl in the film. And it seems as though, her intentions are pure, which they are. They do come across as pure. But then things just kind of go off the rails, and I think it's a film that's a commentary on technology today and kind of where we're headed, but it does so in such a way that is pretty subtle and very creative in the way that the message is being delivered. Aside from being just a great eerie thriller, I think it's a film that really nails down what society is kind of directing towards. It's almost foreshadowing how technology is kind of taking over, in a way. So I really loved Megan. I had actually seen like a behind the scenes video about how the film was made, how they had like a little girl wear the Megan mask, and then they had some CGI implemented there too. So as the little girl playing Megan the robot is walking, they would like do something to her face to make it seem as though the actual robot doll was walking, which I thought was pretty cool. There are a few dances in Megan, so if you like dance, if you like to watch some choreography, Megan is definitely the go-to film. There are some funny moments in Megan, but I feel like the jokes that are made are pretty dark and very aligned with the mood or the theme of that film. But yeah, Megan is a great film. I gotta say, definitely a must watch. Another film recommendation I have is Catch Me If You Can with Leo DiCaprio. Leo's just a great actor. Period. I have nothing bad to say about Leonardo DiCaprio. He's a great actor. He knows what his character wants and needs. He understands the scene. He understands the setting. There's really nothing stopping Leo, especially in Catch Me If You Can, where he plays a con artist pretty much, and he takes on different roles to cover up his true identity. So, he goes from being a doctor to a lawyer to someone in the military, and he just had so many jobs. I can't remember exactly because it's been a while, but I just remember that being like one of my favorite films. Tom Hanks is in it too, which is wild. Tom Hanks is in it. But just the overall story just makes you keep watching it. It like you can't move your eyes from the screen like once you're watching that film because it's that good. Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like I got to keep watching this and I want to watch it more now. I don't know, I don't really know where that film is available now. It used to be available on Netflix, but I think they took it off there. So it might be on YouTube for rental purposes, but yeah, it's such a great film. I mean, like I said, Leo knows how to play a role, and he's very true to his roles, and they take him to another level. I feel like, I mean, I'm not comparing myself to an Academy Award winner, but when it comes to acting, I also feel like the character takes me, and by taking me, I no longer feel like I'm myself. Like, I feel like at a certain point in time, regardless of whatever set I'm in, I enter that character's mind in such a way that, again, I don't know who I am. I don't know who Kathy is anymore. And I feel like that's what happens to Leo too. Like, he just takes on a role and he just goes with it. And he doesn't even remember who he is anymore. But it's so good. So yeah, definitely watch Catch Me If You Can. Another film that I absolutely loved is Priscilla. Priscilla is a biopic. I've never known how to pronounce this. I don't know if it's biopic or biopic. I'm gonna say biopic, just because that's how I say it. But Priscilla is a biopic about Priscilla Presley's life, as the wife, or ex-wife of the rock star sensation Elvis Presley. And what the movie does is that it really centers on Priscilla's interactions with Elvis, on Priscilla's interpretation of what it was like living with a rock star. And I think that not a lot of films feel as intimate as Priscilla did. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the writing. I don't know if it was the great acting from both Jacob, who played Elvis, and Kaylee, who played Priscilla. But there was just something about that film that made me fall in love with it. It just seemed so delicate. The production design was absolutely beautiful. The costumes were beautiful. They were so true to that time period, which was the late 50s into early 60s and early 70s. Everything just felt so authentic for that film, and it worked. It really worked. You really feel for Priscilla at the end of that film, because you can just get a better understanding of what she was going through. And it's almost like you become Priscilla in a way, because you almost feel that sense of isolation, that sense of distrust in a way, because I felt like she really didn't trust Elvis as much throughout her life. Like, she had a lot of doubts, but she stayed with him because she loved him, and I feel like he loved her too, but there was just some disconnects here and there that I felt didn't let them move forward in life. But man, it's such a beautiful film. I definitely recommend that. You can find Priscilla on YouTube. You can either buy it or you can rent it there, but I can't wait for it to come to Netflix. I really hope it does. It deserves to come to Netflix. But yeah, it's so good. The acting is phenomenal. Like, you could tell that each character, very similar to Leo, got lost. Each actor got lost in their characters, and it's so evident in the way they executed everything. They understood what they were doing. They did their research before they went on set, and it's awesome. That's all I have to say about Priscilla without, spoiling too much. It's just such a great film. The next film I have as a recommendation is Fractured. Now, Fractured is one of those films where you don't necessarily understand what's reality and what's not in Fractured until the very end. And I love those types of films because it keeps me guessing and it keeps me wanting more. But Fractured, it basically takes place, I think it felt like it was in the Midwest. It takes place, I'd want to say, in the Midwest. It's a father who struggled with alcohol abuse and, is trying to make a better life for himself with his new family, his wife and his little daughter. And they go to this gas station to get some batteries for the daughter's CD player. I think it was a CD player. And things kind of don't appear to be what they seem afterwards. The film feels very linear up to a certain point, and then it doesn't anymore. And then you're just kind of stuck thinking, wait, am I living this with the character? Is this real? Is this not? But it's a great thriller. It does have some blood, but I don't think it's as bad as, like, again, the Equalizer films or like Get Out. Jordan Peele's Get Out, where there was like a lot of blood. So if you do get queasy, maybe this film isn't for you. But again, I don't think it's that bad. Like, I faint when I see blood, and trust me, it's not that bad. But it's a psychological thriller, and again, the protagonist is this much older man who has been trying to sober up. He ends up at this hospital that is doing some sketchy stuff, and you just don't know what's reality and what's not, which is why it's really, really good. The acting is great, especially from the protagonist. The supporting actors are also really great. They really help drive the story home, which I feel like is essential when it comes to those types of films, because if you don't have great supporting actors for that type of theme that is a psychological thriller, it could go one or two ways. It could either be great, it could either be fantastic, you want to keep watching, or you get tired of watching it and you don't want to do that. So this film really does a great job at building suspense, of keeping the viewer interested, for sure. And then the last film I want to talk about is the Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix. I briefly talked about Joker as well as Priscilla in my first episode, which you should totally check out if you haven't already, which talks about acting basics, intro to acting basics, and intro to the podcast. But the reason I bring up Joker is because it's so well done. And I can honestly say that Joker had some of the best acting I've ever seen in any film, to be completely honest with you. Joaquin Phoenix, who plays the Joker, does such a phenomenal job of losing himself in the character, of understanding the character's motives, the character's mannerisms, all that, and just transforming himself into someone for the audience. He transformed himself into someone that I feel from the moment we see him on screen for the first time to the moment it ends, we start to feel this sort of empathy for the character that he's built. And you almost wonder, should we build empathy for this person? Should we not? Like what's going on? You know what I mean? You try to wonder whether or not you should feel bad for someone like the Joker, who's supposed to be, maniacal and kind of cynical and evil. But then you also try to understand his backstory and where he came from, and how hard people made fun of him because he had a condition, which was not okay. You should never make fun of someone who has a condition. But yeah, Joaquin really deserved that Oscar for that film. The production design is absolutely incredible. They have like a very dark color palette represented throughout the film, and you can tell that whoever was directing this, I think his name was Tim, he really took this film to another level, and he understood each character as they were going through the scenes. I could tell that there were some scenes that were improvised, and I think it was the bathroom scene. One, because I had already seen like a behind the shoot meaning, or behind the shoot like sneak peek into what that bathroom scene was, where it started off as Joaquin Phoenix kind of drifting into space, but then that drift became into this like elaborate dance that Joaquin improvised, and it was so well done, because you can see that this is the climax almost of the film, where the Joker is entering this like level of insanity that we hadn't seen before. It's almost like this transformation that we see come through for the Joker, and it's really good. There's a little violence, so be warned. There's a little bit of violence there, but it's so worthwhile to see it. So yeah, that's it for this episode, you guys. I hope you enjoyed my spiel and my recommendations. If you want to learn more about these films, definitely feel free to reach out to me. I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at Kathy Thangarife. And let me know too in the question section of the podcast, what are some of your favorite films and recommendations, and why? Why would you recommend those films to some people? So the next episode, we will be discussing being single and ways to cope with being single in that regard. I've been wanting to do an episode like that for a while, just like talking about my experiences as a single person and how not everything in life has to be as dreary as people might think when you are single, and ways you can improve your own life and all that. So definitely stay tuned for the next episode. I'm super, super excited. Again, if you don't follow my podcast, please do so. Please share this. You know, as I mentioned before, this podcast has been so therapeutic for me, and I hope it's therapeutic for you too, to just listen to someone that might have the same interests as you, or might be thinking about the same things that you are, and you're looking for someone to express certain feelings that you feel like maybe you're not able to express fully. So just being able to connect with someone, I think, is really important, and that's part of the reason why I started this podcast. I wanted to connect with you guys and you know, want to know what you think and what you have to say as well, aside from just listening to me talk for 20 to 30 minutes. So thank you guys again for joining this episode. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you soon. Bye guys.